We are ECS Outdoors, East Central Saskatchewan's guide to faith, family, farm, and a whole lot of fun. All right, I just love the sound of that song. It really gets a person in the mood for podcasting. We are on the 23rd day of November 2021, and we're starting episode number 2 of ECS Outdoors. We're excited that things are rolling along here with the podcasting, and we want to quickly share, before we even get rolling into it, we want to quickly share God's Word before we get going on this podcast. And we're reading from Proverbs chapter 10, verse 5. And it says, "He who gathers crops in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son." I think that's kind of harsh, but at the same time, it's sort of practical. If in the Bible days, if you didn't go out and harvest before winter came, things were really difficult for you, and you didn't have food to feed your family, and so that's just good advice. I don't care what you say. That's good advice. Get out there. If you have a chance, grow a crop, and take care of your family. Go find an animal in the bush during the hunting seasons. I don't know if they had hunting seasons in the Bible days, but if they did, that would have been cool, because they probably wouldn't have used guns. They would have used very rudimentary bows and spears, and it would have been pretty primitive, I would guess. But we're not going to talk about that anymore, because that's not why we started this podcast. Just a reminder that ECS Outdoors is part of the Greater Tween Lakes Farm Limited. It is also part of Tween Lakes Feed Solutions Limited. And just to clarify what Tween Lakes Feed Solutions Limited is, we love the great outdoors, and we've come to the understanding that one of the products that we grow in our fields year after year is excellent nutrition for deer and most ruminant animals like elk and moose. I actually have some footage of moose right in with my feed site there, and the moose are loving it just like the deer would. So that's just a little bit of a side note on Tween Lakes Feed Solutions. You can pick those up at various retailers in Saskatchewan, here in the east central side of Saskatchewan, and all across Canada in PV Mart stores. So you guys, if you hear this podcast and you live in Canada and you love feeding deer, that's what we do. We package deer feed, and they love it. I harvested my buck, which I mentioned on the first podcast episode. Its belly was full of our feed. Kind of gross to talk like that. It wasn't intended to see what was inside its guts. I don't know any hunter out there that cares to see what's inside of a deer gut, but the bullet ricocheted, and I'm not going to tell you any more how I knew that, but it wasn't pretty. Okay, moving along. Okay, so today I have my 10-year-old son with me. He's actually the little guy there that's standing with me over my deer on the preview picture of our podcast. His name is Jacob, and he is my youngest of 4 sons. And of all my sons, he is by far the most in love with the outdoors, with animals, with hunting, and with his dad. I think he loves me very much, and I appreciate that for sure. So I'm just going to get him here to say hello to you guys. And
hello.
So that's Jacob in a nutshell. That's pretty much all he ever says, other than shoot the deer or let's go fishing or something very much Jacob-esque like that. So we're going to talk to Jacob here in a little bit about what he loves about hunting, and he's gonna share his favorite story with you guys on this year's hunting experiences. We've had a fairly nice hunting season here. We want to also talk about the idea of the season coming to an end. Like I say, we're the 23rd of November here in East Central Saskatchewan. We've got a couple of weeks left of whitetail season. There's a few more seasons throughout Saskatchewan for elk, later season draw elk, and I think the prairie chicken season goes till the 31st of December in certain areas. We call prairie chickens, but it's actually grouse and pheasant and birds like that. We don't actually have pheasants here on this part of East Central Saskatchewan. They're a little further south, but we do have lots of Hungarian partridges and spruce grouse and rough grouse and a few sharptails, but not too many sharptail grouse in this part of Saskatchewan here. But tons of Hungarian partridges. We always see little flocks of them everywhere. So we want to talk a little bit about the end of the season and what that means. And one of the things that we have to do in Saskatchewan here is, unless you're supplement feeding, you should not bait deer after the season is over. A lot of guys give animals treats. There's kind of a rule there with the law that you have to remove feed from the animals as soon as deer season is over, just so they go back to their normal foraging diets, which is more natural behavior for them. It cuts down on issues like chronic wasting disease and other diseases born of animals, deer staying too close together throughout the season. And the deer naturally go off and they spend time during the winter, not in large groups all the time. Then they come back together in spring, and they gather together when melt happens. But those are normal behaviors for the deer. That being said, Christmas is a good time to do that. That season is coming on us here. And, it's a good time to get out with your family and do some sightseeing and see, the abundance of wildlife that's out there. A lot of people are out snowmobiling and we've got groomed trails that cruise right around our area here. So we've had, this year especially, we're going to have tons of groomed trails, and they're going to get on those trails fairly early this year because we've had 1.5 to 2 feet of snow in lots of places, so that's exciting. That's Saskatchewan is by far one of the premium locations in Canada for flat land groomed trails. It's not the mountains, it's not Revelstoke and the mountains, and good for those people that love to go up to the mountains and do that kind of high skill level type of snowmobiling. I like my flat lands. I'm just going to be honest. I like flat ground. The mountains get in the way of seeing everything beyond that. That's what I've always said. I don't like the mountains because you can't see beyond them. Makes sense to me. Anyways, each to their own once again. And it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Everything that God creates is beautiful, and that's one of them. Mountains are beautiful. But, the season comes to an end. Hunting season comes to an end. And then it's time to enjoy the outdoors for not the hunting part, but for all the other parts. We have little ponds that we sometimes push off and go skating on. Those are fantastic things to do in the winter. If the weather stays warm, the opportunities to be outside and enjoy the outdoors are limitless. And so I'm just gonna quickly go over one of the things that we talk about with hunting is the season comes to an end, and then you have stories. We tell stories for hours and hours and hours in the evening times about how the hunting season went, and we share what the funnest parts of our seasons were. And, that's where I've brought Jacob in here. And I'm going to ask Jacob here quickly, just a quick little blip on what, Jacob, was your more enjoyable moment of 2021's hunting season?
Probably going down south to shoot a mule deer.
What was different about shooting that mule deer?
I've barely ever seen mule deer. We tried last year, but we didn't get one, but we got one this year with a muzzle loader.
Yeah, so that was a pretty cool one because I got drawn, and that's a newer season out here. Draw rifle mule deer. The population of mule deer has gone up quite a bit. So, what do you like about mule deer? What's different about them?
They have big ears, and their bodies are a lot different, and their color of fur are a lot different color.
Now, do they run like a normal deer that we would normally see?
No, they kind of run like a bunny.
They run like a bunny, that's true. They have a funny hop, don't they? Yeah. So, okay, so just for full, we want to be completely honest with all of our listeners. So, I was the shooter there, wasn't I?
Yes, he was.
And did I do a fantastic job with that muzzleloader?
He did not. It took him 5 shots to drop the mule deer.
So if anybody understands what it is to shoot with a muzzleloader, you don't get a refill bullet in a magazine with a muzzleloader. So the fortunate part was the first shot wounded the deer, and it never ran after that. It stood its ground, and it was a very frustrating hunt. I actually had to clean the muzzleloader in between shots. But in the end, we were able to get that deer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things too with Jacob here, I'm going to ask him another question. With our hunting, we hunt pretty much any species that we're allowed to hunt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did a lot of waterfowl hunting. And is there anything particular about this year's waterfowl hunt that was different than other years?
This year it was a lot different because last year we got a lot of ducks, but this year there was not too many ducks. We got 1 duck this whole waterfowl season. And I got to be on the Real Deal with Mark McNay.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in another episode for sure. We are affiliated through Tween Lakes Feed Solutions with the Real Deal and Mark McNay, and we shot an episode last month. And that'll be aired in 2022 in the wintertime, but we'll talk more about that and how that experience went down. So we could go on for hours, and that's what I said before about hunting and who we are. We talk all the time as a family about our stories of hunting, and we are going to make sure that these podcasts are short and sweet. And that is about as short and sweet as we can do for a podcast here. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully we can tell more stories from the hunting experience to the farming experience and also our faith experience. And we all do that as a family, and that's the best part of this podcast opportunity. That's all I have for you guys tonight. Over and out.